Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. Today I'm joined by David Pearce from Abnormal Media, and we're going to be talking about all things tripod in All Quiet on the Martian front. David, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Very happy about it.
So, before we kick into the Martian extreme, who are Abnormal? I know you're a brain in a jar, and does Igor know that you've gone missing?
We've been able to slip away from him. He does keep pretty close tabs on us, but we were able to steal away for a short time for this interview before he drags us back into the laboratory.
So what is Abnormal Media then? You're a relatively new company, are you, or have you been going for a little while?
Well, we've been around for a little while. All of our games have been in development. This is the first game we've actually brought to Kickstarter so far. Okay. We've been in development with another game called it's an RPG for Thieves World, coming out hopefully next year. We also have the rights for Panzerleader and Panzerblitz, the old 1979, 1980s cardboard chip World War I or World War II game that we're going to be re-releasing later after in between Thieves World and the next expansion of Return of the Tripods.
Oh, excellent.
So we've been around for about for a few years. Return of the Tripods have been in development for about 5. We wanted to get it right the first time.
So you're not just focused solely then on miniature tabletop gaming. There's a bit of RPG, bit of wargaming in the classic hex and counter kind of way. Is that due to the makeup of the team at Abnormal then? Is it just people coming from everywhere and it's a hobby?
Yeah, it's a little bit of the people that were involved in the hobby that have made up Abnormal. We have old school tabletop gamers such as, myself, who my very first board game that I ever, or military or what we'd consider a traditional, hobby board game, which was Panzerleader, was given to me by my father when I was just a young teenager in the early 80s. And then the co-founder, Ian Starcher, is a big role player guy. And we and everyone on the team was a big fan of the first edition of Return or All Quiet on the Martian front. So I know I've been a Warhammer player since Rogue Trader days.
No, so we're starting to show our age then. When people hear Rogue Trader, they get very confused. So with Return of the Tripods then, All Quiet in the Martian front first surfaced about, I'm going to say 10 years ago. It's probably a bit longer than that now. And it was set sort of towards the end of what would have been our First World War. Was it? No. It kicked off around 1904, 1905, somewhere around there.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
The original first edition setting took place in the opening days. Well, it was about a year into the second Martian invasion for first edition, where most of the world had already been conquered. The only holdouts were a bit of Europe, the United States, and other isolated pockets throughout the world, like India, the Suez Canal area, South Africa, but most of the world had been already overrun. For second edition, we kind of jumped back in the Wayback Machine and retconned a lot of that. Part of it was because my wife, who happens to be Australian, refused to allow me to move forward in a game in which Australia had already been wiped off the face of the earth. So
it's a valid excuse. Does that mean we get to see Anzacs actually defending the Antipodeans then? Yes,
that will be. We plan on expanding into other nations, so the whole world can get involved. This launch was focused primarily on the Germans for second edition. We are releasing here any day now a bridging document that will bridge some of the first edition armies, which was American and British, into second edition until we re-release the full American and British lines.
Okay, cool.
for our next expansion.
So with the war game itself, then, if people are unfamiliar with it, it was 15 mil originally. I presume it's staying that sort of 15 mil scale.
Yeah. Originally, it was actually HO scale.
Right. Oh, that will make Lloyd very happy. Actually sticking to a proper railway scale and not just a number for once.
Yeah, the original scale was HO, and ours, second edition, is a little bit closer to 15 mil, but you would call it heroic 15 millimeter.
So sort of that 15 to 18,
yeah,
depending on where you measure from and to.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can put the original first edition HO scale next to ours, and there's a little bit of a height difference, but you'd have to be really nitpicky about it to really.
Yeah. Does that mean you've had a chance to go back and look at resculpting already existing?
In fact, we've actually had to resculpt everything.
Oh, okay.
When I acquired the IP, the All Quiet on the Martian Front IP, what I received, unfortunately, did not include any usable molds.
No.
There were virtually no usable molds. There was no tripod molds that I could use. There were very few human molds that were usable, and so I had to go back, and nothing was digital. I had one digital file, and so one digital sculpt, and so I had to start from scratch anyway. And so we decided to re-image the Martians. Bring them up into I wouldn't say a more modern look, because the game takes place in 1917, but it's a different aesthetic than the first edition.
Yeah, the first edition Martian tripods were very metallic clamshell on legs. They really fed into the I suppose the old movie style, whereas the new Martians have a more frighteningly organic bonus layer going on.
Yeah, we refer to the older version as the golden age of sci-fi tripods. The kind of more of a 1950s science fiction, 1940s kind of science fiction look to it, where this one has, I would say, a little bit more of a contemporary feel with it. It's a more of a not arachnid, but a crustacean look to them. In fact, I have one of them right here. So this is the more of a crustacean look.
Oh, that's much bigger than I give it credit for based on the picture,
And this stands about 5 to 6 inches tall.
Yeah, which in 15 mil scale is shockingly big. It's not.
Actually, have here's a human, and then here is the.
Well, that's one way of teaching them, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a matter of time. Not that the tripods and the Martians have everything their own way, because with the sort of the retconning and with expanding the timeline in a slightly alternate fashion, the Martians had obviously visited before, and humans had done some work reverse engineering their tech. So when you're fielding a human force, they're not just a World War I or Great War style equipment across the board. Will we see much of the sort of Martian integrated tech with the armies coming out then for the humans?
A bit. So in the new lore, of course, the Martians did land 12 years previously. So the humans have had a little bit of time to adapt. Now, we've also tried to keep with the general aesthetics of World War I and have some basis in historical reference points for all the human equipment. Now, having access to some Martian technology 12 years previously, they've obviously been able to advance a little bit further and adapt some of it. Two examples would be, here is the Oberschließen tank, which was on the drawing board in Germany for a World War I and was planned for production in 1919, but moved that up a little bit and made it a little bit larger than the original plans, along with Here is the K-Wagon, which has a basis for...
Wow.
They actually built 2 of these in Germany. They never left the factory floor, but they had completed 2 of them. Of course, this one is scaled up considerably more than the historical version.
Yeah.
Which is, you can see there's the human.
Form a chain to load the guns from ammo depths to the barrels at the front.
Yes. So it's so we've tried to keep some type of historical reference point. But the technology has advanced a little bit to try and adapt for the Martians. In fact, we have we do have a special character called the Hunter, which he has a nemesis, which is a specialized, unique Martian drone that the human and the German hunter, the Jaeger, is as a nemesis. That they battle it out because they're kind of fighting against
back
each other.
And forth, and nobody's ever getting the upper hand.
And the hunter has cobbled together a Martian weapon and a power source that he carries around and uses for a large sniper rifle, hunting rifle that he uses, an big energy rifle that he's cobbled together from Martian technology.
That sounds fantastic. I'd love the idea of reverse engineering the tech in a more manufactured way. All of a sudden, you're not just seeing hover tanks and jetpacking troops left, right, and center, or whatever it happens to be, that they've gone, well, here's how our production currently works, and if we take their power source, or we take some form of armor plating from them, then we can physically manufacture tanks that we wouldn't be ordinarily capable of, but without it looking so outlandish.
That's exactly the route that we're taking. Is that we won't be able to replicate all the Martian technology, but what they are able to do, they're taking advantage. Humans are nothing if not adaptable.
Necessity, the mother of all invention, is what they tell us.
It is indeed.
So, what's the gameplay like then? It's a 15 mil game generally, with going up to that sort of, or down to that scale. It allows you to blow up into sort of company and above tactics, and you're less prescriptive on how individual figures work, but often the use of that allows you to field bigger vehicles, bigger tanks, but also to bring in command and control. Does it still follow the same sort of structures the previous edition did, or have you looked at rewriting the rules as well?
So we made a conscious effort to not stray too far from some of the basic concepts of first edition. And we wanted to ensure that all of the fans that had kept the game alive in the waning years, that they weren't left out in the cold. And so all of the first edition models are still completely usable. And so they don't have to go out and buy all new stuff. So they can continue to use the original stuff. And while there are quite a few differences between the 2 rule sets, if you are a first edition player, you're going to be able to roll right into, second edition. So there's some of the basic concepts of a defensive stat, the armor stat, and how they interact with the power of weapons. Completely the same. So you'll be able to, we've increased the command and control aspects of the game. We've restructured how you put together an army together, and we've changed some of the activation rules. In the first edition, you'd activate your entire side. You'd activate like a unit of tanks. They'd get to move and then shoot and then move again. And so everyone got to do that. In second edition, the way it works is you'll activate a unit, like say a squad of tanks. You will get 2 actions, and you have a list of actions you can choose from. And you can take those actions in any order you want. And so you could shoot and then move, or you can move and shoot. If you're an infantry, you can dig in. You can. We also introduced the concept of shock, which is kind of like a stunning or demoralized, like pinned down kind of effect that that if you're not killed off, you could get a shock token, and you can take an action to remove that shock token, so you can then take your final action. And then once you activate that unit, then it goes to the other side. So your opponent then gets to activate a unit. So it goes in you move, I move, back and forth, one unit at a time. So we did that because we wanted to keep both players engaged during the entire game. I don't know, I've played quite a few games myself, miniature games, where my opponent moves my entire army, and your opponent just kind of sits there for 45 minutes or an hour while I do all of my stuff, and there's nothing he can really do to, my only job is to remove guys that just died.
Sure.
Well, so we wanted to keep both players active and engaged during the entire process.
Yeah, and the alternative activation is a good way of doing it. That being said, if I remember correctly, tripods used to have less orders initially than humans, but would sort of ramp up over time. Is that still the case, or have you had to change how the sort of the tripods work in that regards to make it fit the alternative activation?
Well, so what we did was we introduced the command and control aspects of it. Is that there are, each side, the humans start off with a large pool of command tokens that their company commanders and the field commander both have a pool of them at the beginning, and they use these to give both a command to units such as double time, which allows them to move faster, or concentrate fire, which allows them to reroll misses. And the Martians, what they do is they start out with 0, but they generate command tokens throughout the game as long as they have what we call a tri-link network. If the 3 tripods are interconnected, and so as long as all 3 tripods are, on the table, they will generate a command point every turn that they can then freely use throughout their force.
Right. Okay. So you may find sort of tripods organizing in waves in certain areas of the board where that sort of tri-link is coming up for them, and breaking that down could be a key to success for humanity.
Oh, yes. The 2 other big changes that we made, mostly to the Martians, is that before, the Martian tripod armor was very, very tough at the beginning of the game, but as you shot at it more, the armor value would decrease over time.
Yeah, there was a bit
so the armor. The armor was also basically its hit points. And what we did was we altered that slightly, that the armor doesn't change, but so if it's an armor value of 10, it'll always be 10. But it has damage counters that the damage will build up, and then the more damage it takes, the less effective the Martian is, and then he falls over, dies, has a chance of exploding. So we changed that. The other thing we did was we put more emphasis on the supporting units for the tripods, for the Martians. One of the things I noticed with first edition, all the times I played and whenever I'd observe other people playing it, was the Martian force was almost completely tripods. Yeah. There was nothing else on the board. None of the other units that were available to, like the various drone units or lobotomons, were made available, or that were made available, were ever seen on the tabletop, because the rules really didn't support them as having a useful function on the table. Yeah. And I was one of the very first things I changed was increase the value of lobotomons, which are, for those who don't know, are humans that have been captured and then given a lobotomy with a control helmet and surgically attached weapons to the ends of their arms and sent out in waves against the humans. So I increased the value and the usefulness of lobotomons and drones, so it doesn't have such a focus on just having a few tripods on the board. Yeah. So
it also it adds another dimension. Whenever you're playing any game that has a sort of a combined arms feel, if everything is a tank, then you need to have a counter to that in whatever way it's going to be. And even if it's not a case that the lobototrons are a particularly effective combat unit, they may be good at something else, whether it's screening or taking objectives, or multiple ways you can push it in, and giving people more tools to do different jobs opens up the list building, and then that opens up the gameplay further, because all of a sudden the opponent has to think about, well, how do I counter not just 3 tripods or 6 tripods on the table? How do I counter 3 tripods with a couple of companies of Lobototrons, or maybe some of the Raiders, or whatever else it happens to be in there? And they're not just seeing the same repetitive army coming at them across the board every time.
Oh, yes,
exactly. Which really enhances gameplay anyway.
Yes, I fully agree, and that's the big reason why we did it. We wanted to add more dynamic gameplay to the Martian player, which makes it fun for everybody, both the Martian and the human player. Because again, if you're just same 3 tripods or same 6 tripods the last 5 games, it hasn't changed, because there's no reason to change it. It gets repetitive and boring. And so we wanted to make sure that there was more layers to it, and everyone had more options and could do more things with more units.
Well, you are currently on Kickstarter, and
yes,
it's funded already, which is fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I noticed that you've decided to go with a physical and a digital side of things for the Kickstarter. So depending on where people are in the world, they may want to pick up actual physical products, or maybe if they're a bit further away, then, or if they're keen on the home printing side of things, then they can just pick up STLs and PDFs. That sort of was that a conscious decision because of the way the hobbies move forward these days?
Yes, absolutely. We wanted to make sure that we embraced the new technologies and that are available, that are becoming more and more common to everybody around the world. And it's much like either, not I want to say the music industry, but everyone in the gaming sphere, tabletop gamers of all stripes, be it role players, miniature war gamers, tabletop gamers, are increasingly adopting 3D printer technology for everything from terrain to tokens to the miniatures. And in my personal view is that it will only become more and more common for individual people to have these 3D printers. And so it only makes sense to embrace that and enable people to be able to print their own miniatures at home and give them that option. Some people would prefer just to, hey, I just want to put my model together, paint it, and throw it on the table. And some people, I really enjoy this new aspect of the hobby. And so we wanted to give them that option, as well as that some people that are in distant areas, that are, I won't say distant areas, but are further away in the supply chain for various game components. It was a big thing here in Western Australia. I'm currently living in Western Australia. Yeah. And one of the biggest hurdles to the gaming community and the gaming industry here in Western Australia is because Perth is literally the most isolated urban center on the planet, that everything is so expensive and people don't adopt new games or new hobbies because of the cost of shipping things. And so when we introduced the ability to 3D print, it was really embraced by the community here. And we've had several backers dump thousands of dollars into our Kickstarter just for the opportunity to get this here. So we wanted to be able to provide a 3D option, 3D printing option for those that really enjoy that aspect of the hobby. And to be honest, trying to avoid it, I think, is like trying to push the sea back. Yeah. It's the technology.
The genie's out of the bottle on this one.
Yeah. The genie's out of the bottle, and it's and trying to shut down everyone that wants to make their own version of one of our tripods. Like if someone gets their hands on one model and go, I can create that in a CAD program and takes it, however long they want, and then post it online for free. I mean, the amount of time that we would spend trying to squash that is not going to worth the money we would save doing it. And in my personal opinion, my view is that gamers are they're honest people, and they would be willing to support a game they really enjoy, and would be willing to pay a few dollars for a reasonably priced STL. Mm-hmm. Instead of pirating it, because they like their game, they like to support their community. It's like the brick and mortar stores. There's nothing online you can't find cheaper than in a brick and mortar store, but people love brick and mortar stores because it's like Cheers. You go where they know you go where you know your name.
It's the core of the community in your area generally. So
yes, absolutely. So and we wanted to do the same thing. Is that buy the STL. If you on the Kickstarter, our STLs are about they're less than $10. They come out to less than $10 a model for an STL. And so, especially if you buy both the German and the Martian armies, it almost comes down to like almost $5 a model combined. And then you can print as many as you want with our blessing. And in my view, it'll help the hobby and the game grow.
With the Kickstarter itself, then there's 2 very comprehensive forces there already, and there've been a few unlocked bits and pieces, some additional units and vehicles. Have you a plan to extend either of these armies in this campaign through further stretch goals by a large amount, or is there a we need to get this far and then that's those 2 armies sort of semi-complete, and then we can start looking at some of the other forces for the next sort of wave down the line?
For this campaign, for this Kickstarter campaign, there are about 4 or 5 more stretch goals that we have waiting in the wings to start adding. If if we continue to grow and get more funding, we want to make sure we share that funding with the community. Mm-hmm. By adding more stretch goals. So we already have, another 4 or 5 planned. But after that, we do have plans for when we do the next release to also include a few additional German units down the road that we already have planned, in addition to the Americans and additional Martian forces that we're planning for the next release, which already has a working title called Under a Baleful Red Sky.
Oh, that's delightfully poetic. H.G. Wells would be proud of that one.
I would hope so. He's been a great inspiration for us.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see what you guys at Abnormal have been putting together here, revitalizing what is, Wells is the father of modern wargaming with Little Wars anyway, and then seeing the All Quiet on the Martian front return in such a comprehensive way, not just a dust off and here's the first edition reprinted again, but actually developing it and making it your own. Hopefully it will go from strength to strength to strength, and the Kickstarter unlocks all those stretch goals and leaves things poised for a new front to open up in the future.
That was our hopes.
There we have it, folks. All Quiet on the Martian Front, Return of the Tripods, still on Kickstarter. The links will be down below. There's also a quick PDF of the rules that you can have a look at to see whether or not it tickles your fancy. If you have any questions for the people over at Abnormal, please drop them below and we'll pass them across and try and get you an answer. Until next time, David, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.